We have football tonight. It is the Hall of Fame game, and all eyes will be on first-round running back Omarion Hampton, who finally has his chance to shine.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers for 10 seasons now, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there, as always, for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, the long, cold, torturous offseason is now behind us because tonight we got Chargers football, baby. Let's go. Omarion Hampton, the first-round pick, all eyes are going to be on him. Can't wait to see what he looks like breaking tackles, using that physical nature. And Oronde Gadsden, can't wait to see him on the football field, bringing that explosive element to the tight end room that, quite frankly, has been missing for a very long time. And it's Junior Colson's time to shine. It's time for him to show that he's healthy, show that he understands this defense, and that he can take steps towards being a starting linebacker for the Chargers.
Yeah, because he's not right now, right? And the Chargers, if they're going to reach kind of their full potential, and want to kind of maintain that top 10 level of defense, it feels like it comes with Junior Colson playing much better than he did last year and winning that starting job. But all eyes, again, are on Omarion Hampton. And the interesting thing about him, David, is we haven't heard much, right? Which is a little bit surprising. I mean, Daniel Popper has said that, being out at practice, he is clearly the best running back on the roster, and then there's a gap, and there's probably Keandre Vidal, who I'm also excited to get to watch in the preseason and probably get to watch tonight as well. But this is the thing. We haven't heard anything, right? There's been 5, I think, padded practices, 4 or 5 padded practices at this point, and you just kind of felt like one of those you were going to be like, oh, hey, Omarion Hampton, this was his day. He showed up, and he was excellent and kind of just took over practice. That's what you want to see out of a first-round pick, right? And I think the kind of unfair part of Omarion Hampton, and even though we're all excited about it, is like, this is your first chance to show that they should have used a first-round pick on you, right? But this is the actual platform. This is the type of, event where he can actually show what he can do. He can actually flex, what his superpowers are, because with him, I mean, one of his biggest calling cards at the collegiate level was yards after contact. You know where you can't get that? In a practice setting. It's going to be blown dead, even if you're thumped, right? This is his chance to go out there and put on a show. And if he does, especially early, we might not see much more of him throughout the rest of the preseason.
Which is fine by me. If he goes out there and shows that he can get this thing done at a high level and he's a man among boys, then that's all fine with me, because there's a lot of uncertainty with the Chargers running back room. We have no idea what's going on with Najee Harris. And so it is very important for Omarion Hampton to go out there, and I'm excited to watch this guy break tackles, run through somebody's face, use that physicality, catch some passes out of the backfield. I'm going to be looking at the speed and the acceleration, see if he's going to be able to take that corner and take off, and also pass protection, right? It's going to be really important that he's able to understand his assignments, take on those assignments, and eliminate the defenders that are trying to come after his quarterback. You can't be trusted with pass protection. It may limit your opportunities to get on the football field.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing is, obviously, he did it at a high level, but so did Keandre Vidal, right? And he had some really rough moments as a rookie in pass protection. It's just different at this level. And especially when you have weaknesses on the interior of our offensive line, you can't put a tight end on the end to help. You need that running back to be willing to step up in the A-gap and meet a Mike linebacker in the hole and not give up the ground that's going to affect a play, right? But just to kind of give, some examples, last year, Lambert played in only one game, and they knew, right? Played 17 snaps, and that was it. He was starting. He was done. Joe Alt last year played in 2 preseason games, but he was also switching sides. So I think that played a factor in it, right? Because he was trying a new position. He played in 2 games, 55 snaps. If Omarion really impresses, that could be the only time we end up seeing him in the preseason, which makes it even more exciting to see him tonight. But I think more than even to what we both talked about before, the improvements of the Chargers running backs, and running game in general, a lot of it's going to fall on the shoulders of Omarion Hampton, because he is the one big addition that you're hoping can really elevate this team that really struggled efficiency-wise to run the football last year. he is the answer. He is the key. He's the holy grail, hopefully, to unlock this offense that could be balanced for the first time in Justin Herbert's career. But he also needs weapons, and that's why we're so excited to see what these wide receivers can do, starting with Trey Harris, right? One of the rookies, honestly, with the most pressure on him, because they kind of need him to be good early. And it did feel like, David, we finally got to see him start to shine a little bit this last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of, started things off a little bit behind the eight ball, having to get back in shape, and then, really kind of having an up and down performance until he started to ascend a little bit, started to catch on.
In a contract holdout, right? He missed basically the first whole week.
For sure. And yeah, that's, invaluable time when you're trying to establish chemistry with your quarterback, a guy that, the Chargers have high hopes in, a guy that they brought in for one of his calling cards of being able to create separation, being able to defeat man-to-man coverage, which is something the Chargers desperately need to add to their offense. So what I'm going to be looking at in this game is creating separation, being that monster against man-to-man coverage, being able to go up and get the football, the contested catch, the route running, the hands. Those are all going to be things I'm going to be looking for Trey Harris. And I want to see him be performing at a higher level than these guys that are on the football field with him, because that's what the Chargers need to help with Lab McConkey. This is a guy they're putting a lot of trust in, and I think that he is a big part of this offense this year.
And I think, fairly or unfairly, someone that the fan base turned on a little bit because of the contract holdout. It's always going to be about the, name on the front of the jersey for the fan base more than it's going to be about the name on the back of it, right? And so him holding out and missing that time when they know how much this team needs him is also something that he has a chance to kind of erase in one night. And that's going to be kind of the theme here, especially for the guys who haven't had those big standout performances so far, is like, hey, all that stuff can be erased in one night tonight with a big performance that kind of shows that you arrived. You can do it at the next level. And we're talking about one of the guys who was maybe, the most dominant receiver in all of college football on a game-to-game basis last year. And he's healthy, which is really one of the only reasons that he dropped in the draft to begin with. And someone also who was commended by this coaching staff for putting in all of the extra work during OTAs in minicamp to try to catch up, while Keandre Lambert-Smith wasn't there, right? But what he has done since training camp has started is make those highlight plays. I mean, I think me and you can sit here right now and say Keandre Lambert-Smith has had more of kind of the highlight plays, more of the big days than even Trey Harris has so far, and I'm excited to see how that translates tonight.
For sure. I mean, KLS has brought in a very exciting brand of football, and also I think has probably eased a lot of minds and alleviated some stress from people who were upset that Mike Williams decided to retire or was forced to retire, right? They're like, okay, well, who's going to go get the football in those moments where you got to have it, where you have to have somebody that, the quarterback and Justin Herbert can just trust to throw the ball up to and go get it. And to his credit, he's one of the guys that said, I feel like when the ball's in the air, that it's mine. And I feel like he's kind of shown that attitude. So what I want to see is, I think we've seen the spectacular, and of course we want to see that. I want to see the boring. I want to see the fundamental. I want to see him be able to make the consistent catches, so that way he can, transform from a guy who is making the spectacular highlight catches to the guy that's getting a ton of different catches every single game. And I feel like he has the potential and ability to be able to do that. But also, again, got to take the top off the defense. You're running a 4-3. I want to see you stretch the field, baby. Go get the football.
Yeah, and honestly might be the best ball tracking player on the roster already. And, shout out to Ladd, because he was always way better than expected in those situations.
Oh, my goodness.
It doesn't get talked about enough because he's 5'11" and 5'8" is, I believe, what he said.
Contested catch monster, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was like 60% or something.
60% is crazy.
A small dude. But I think that's been a very encouraging thing about KLS is, like, speed threats can kind of be put into a box, right? Where it's like, oh, he's a Jalen Reagor. He's a Ted Ginn. He's these guys that really the only true tool they have in their bag is the speed. And
Travis
KLS,
Benjamin.
Travis Benjamin, to his credit, has shown he's more than that, right? Like, speed receivers aren't making the catches that this guy has been able to make. So to have those kind of catches, those highlight plays with the 4.3 speed, feels like another guy who could really outplay what his draft position was. And I knew as soon as they were on the phone with him when they drafted him, not to mention the fact that they took him before Oronde Gadsden, who we're also in love with, that they saw something in him, that they think this is a dude who's going to be something in this league and be a part of this offense sooner, maybe rather than later. But how will it all shake out? What positions are they going to be? That is really what we have to find out right now, because the X position is wide open. We heard that they're going to be playing Trey Harris as a Z, so that'll be also interesting to see. But both these young receivers, especially with Mike Williams not being in the picture, have a huge opportunity. But we're going to talk about the other guy who does, Oronde Gadsden, not only with the explosive plays, but how will he block? We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I know that better than ever because I have a 15-month-old that I'm constantly chasing around the house all day, every day. But golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. Of course, the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. David, let's talk about the other guys that we're so excited to watch tonight in the Hall of Fame game, even in a preseason game. I mean, you know it. We're here with you guys every day. You have
I don't
to be
care.
kind of a sicko to be this excited about preseason football, especially the Hall of Fame game, which I think is notorious for, not getting starters, basically having the guys at the end of the roster doing most of the heavy lifting in a game like this. But for the Chargers, especially when we knew they needed weapons, and with them drafting so many weapons, even the 5th round picks, we're so excited to watch tonight because we know they have a chance to make an impact on the offense. And it starts with Oronde Gadsden. And I think it's two-tiered with him, right? Because you want to see the explosiveness, like you brought up a little bit earlier in his game. You want to be able to see that continue with the pads on, with the live bullets flying. But the biggest thing for Oronde Gadsden is going to be, how can you block? Because we know how important that is to Greg Roman, and we haven't got to see it so far very much during training camp. And there has been, some commendations. I know Daniel Popper said that he's had some encouraging blocks out there, but this is the first chance we get to see, where he's at and maybe how far he needs to go in that area of his game.
And he doesn't have to be a world beater as a blocker. He doesn't have to be a road grader. He just has to be competent. He just has to be able to do his job, seal off a defender for a second. That's really all it takes. You're able to just get somebody out of the way. You have, a very young, very shifty running back that has the jets to be able to take it. If you're able to just do your job, right?
Yeah.
Be able to
get in the way.
Eliminate the person in front of you just long enough. So yeah. And yeah, of course, obviously with Oronde Gadsden, I'm just looking forward to the beginning of hopefully a beautiful marriage between Justin Herbert and a young tight end. It just seems like the last few years, it's just been the Chargers hiring an assassin at tight end. Just somebody there for a year, being able to, provide quality production, whether it's Gerald Everett or Jared Cook or, even the last year of a Hunter Henry, they
haven't had the future at that position in a long time.
They haven't had the guy that they can just pair together and grow together with. Maybe, that next Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates.
Well, and I think you see it with a lot of the really good, offenses around the league, whether it's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, or, it's all these other guys who have that dude, the Jalen Hurts with the Dallas Goddards, the Lamar Jacksons with the Mark Andrews. Like, it feels like all of those guys have that guy, and it just hasn't felt like the Chargers have had that in a long time. And to your point, more of the future, right? Like somebody who could grow into being the long-term answer at the position, more than just a one-year mercenary that you're going to get, and he'll elevate to a good level, but not necessarily someone who could take that game to the next level and be that, 700-800 yard per season type of tight end. And we know that he has at least the receiving chops to do that. And when you see Joe Ortiz taking Isaiah Likely in the 4th round, when you see the 5th round picks that he took last season, even on the defensive side, it makes your mouth water a little bit.
Yeah, you're inclined to be optimistic.
This dude could be that next 5th round gem, him or, KLS. But we're also going to get to see something we might not see much in the regular season, which is kind of why it's a commodity tonight. And that's Darius Davis playing wide receiver, David. And I think this is the kind of question that happens this time last year and even before that, which is, can Darius Davis show that enough as a wide receiver to be more than just a return man that occasionally gets in for, 5-ish snaps a game on offense?
Yeah, they towards the end of last season, they were finding more and more ways to get him a part of the offense, and he was making plays. He was a guy out there that was full effort, and also he's just so exciting, man. He has the quickness, the burst, the acceleration, and the speed to take it the distance anywhere on the football field. Obviously, that's what makes him such a great punt returner, a kick returner, because of that vision and that burst of acceleration. But now it's, okay, we know you're super fast. We understand that. How can we harness that speed and channel it in the direction that we want it to go, and then unlock it and unleash it on the NFL? That's, I think, what they're continuing to try to do. So, yeah, how is Darius Davis going to be used tonight? What type of routes is he going to be running? Is he going to be able to continue some strong hands that he showed last year? Because all of these things are going to be part of the story for him. And also, how is he going to handle the physicality part, right? With Darius Davis, is he going to be able to get off the line of scrimmage, be able to, handle the man-to-man press coverage, because he is a smaller receiver, right? So if you want to get out there and you want to be more involved in the offense, you have to be able to navigate through those issues that you're inevitably going to deal with from time to time.
Yeah, and I mean, he did show the receiving chops, to your point. I mean, 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games last year, and also last year in the preseason had that 70-yard touchdown, right, where you kind of got a glimpse of, oh man, like, if you can use this dude, you can find a way to get a really explosive player on the field for your offense. And I think that the thing is more about the physicality and getting off the line of scrimmage and, being able to, do those physical parts of the game. It's more just about, okay, can a player at this size actually be able to handle the hits that come along with being a real offensive player and not just a gadget guy that maybe gets hit 4 or 5 times a game, if that.
Right.
He's never had more than 2 receptions in a game. So this will be a big test for that, and to see if he could become more than that and shows that ability. But I know one player that a lot of fans keep mentioning, and we'll get to see for the first time really this offseason, is Brendan Rice, who now, David, I mean, maybe wasn't a conversation, honestly more of an afterthought at the beginning of training camp. Isn't that now, because, I mean, Mike Williams' retirement, a Jalen Reagor injury, and now it's like, okay, well, maybe there is some space at the end of this wide receiver room, and maybe Brendan Rice does enter himself back into that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you looked at all of the receivers out in that room, and you're like, man, it just seems like Brendan Rice's chances may be a little bit bleak here with the people that we kind of knew were ahead of him on the depth chart, and also the issues that he had last year. Well, now it's time to show that you completely, fully understand everything that's going on with the playbook on offense, that you can go out there, you can execute the plays, and then, of course, you can go make plays, make the catches, be able to make a statement, because injuries happen all the time, and we know one of the Chargers' core philosophies that they truly believe in is TED, there every day. And so if Brendan Rice can show that he can be on the field, know what he's doing, go out there and make plays, then he can throw his hat in the ring. This is an extra preseason game, an extra opportunity for you to go out there and grab a spot where there may not have been one for you before.
And I think the hard thing for him, right, like, is obviously the Chargers see something in him. They used the draft pick on him. They kept him around even after his injury last year when they could have waived him. And it sucks that when you talk about him, you have to always bring up the one glaringly bad moment that he had. Not you specifically. I'm just saying that has to always be kind of part of the conversation, because he got a chance to get on the field last year. Something bad happened. He wasn't on the same page with the rest of the offense, and his quarterback seemingly yelled at him. And then we never saw him again. So it just leaves such a bad taste in your mouth that you hope he has a chance for redemption. But also, like, you have, for Darius Davis, you have, maybe the ultimate compliment for him, where his coaches are saying, hey, he's not just a speed guy anymore. Like, he's route running out there. And you have Jim Harbaugh bringing him up unsolicited or unprompted, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear that about Brendan Rice. And the questions aren't getting asked about Brendan Rice to Jim Harbaugh and these guys at these press conferences, to be fair. But he also just hasn't seemingly had a big camp up to this point. But again, like we've talked about some of these other guys, you can erase it in one night. Your slow start can be erased in one night. And I still remember him blocking a defender off the screen on that Darius Davis 70-yard touchdown last
true.
year, right? Which kind of got him on our radar a little bit more. But he'll still have to beat out, not even, Jalen Reagor's hurt, and we just don't know how long that's going to be, because obviously we kind of penciled him into that Mike Williams spot on the roster. Yeah. And that seems less certain at this point, right? Because of just how highly they thought of him. What about Dale Von Campbell? He's another guy that I'm excited to watch tonight. He's someone that has consistently gotten brought up by Daniel Popper, making some highlight catches. A 6'4", 220-pound undrafted receiver that ran a 4.43 at his pro day at that size. That alone will get you that kind of attention, but it's also just consistently making plays. Did have a bad drop on what would have been a big, long touchdown the other day. But he's a name that keeps popping up, and I mean, I think a lot of people thought Luke Grimm was going to be that kind of preseason darling. It could be Dale Vaughn. I mean, honestly, with how, much he's been flashing, we probably haven't talked about him enough, but he's a guy to definitely keep an eye on, and another guy that Brendan Rice will have to compete for if he wants a spot at the end of the roster. But we still have more to get into because this is also a gigantic game for Junior Colson, who we expect to be out there, and there is a ton at stake. So we're going to get into all that and a couple more rookies and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat, and it's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. And I love this because I get alerts from Monarch Money for things I never actually see coming. And I think one of the biggest things about becoming a parent is realizing how many different expenses you didn't know you were going to be having and how quickly that can all add up. But to keep track of it and be collaborative with it with your partner as well is another great part of Monarch Money. But you can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. David, we still have more great stuff to get into because there are a lot of other players that we're very excited about, and we're not even going to be able to fit them all on today's show. But there's a lot of players with a lot at stake, even in the first preseason game, and I think including Junior Colson. But thank you all for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. Junior Colson. This is an interesting one, David, because we know last year he was a kind of expected, maybe not internally, but definitely externally, he was expected to kind of hit the ground running and be able to take that starting spot right away and also be really good because we saw him be really good in Michigan's defense under head coach Jim Harbaugh, under defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter. That's not how it happened. And he kind of started off as a starter, got a ton of starter reps. It's been completely the opposite, where even if, one of Deion Henley or Denzel missed the other day, and it was actually Troy Dye that got in and got those first snaps with the first team defense, not Junior Colson. So maybe two guys he has to go through. He should be playing tonight, and I want to see that progress. I want to see that he's ready to start making his push to be that starting linebacker next to Deion Henley.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the ideal pairing for the Chargers. That's who they want to have out there. They want to have those two young, very athletic linebackers that have the range to run sideline to sideline and to be actually quality coverage linebackers, because you just don't see a lot of that. There's a lot of linebackers that have very specific skill sets, like, for example, a Denzel Perriman, a guy that's just an absolute annihilator in run support, a guy that has just real, true stopping power. There are a lot less Deion Henleys out there with a more well-rounded skill set than there are the Denzel Perrimans that have kind of a one element of their particular bag that they're really good at. So
too.
Yeah, exactly. So for Junior Colson, he had a lot of advantages with knowing the defense, having the same, coaching staff for the most part. The just one thing that he didn't anticipate, and he even really kind of admitted, was the speed of the game. He just was not really ready for how things went at the pace that they go at the NFL level. So
yeah, I think more people have said that about him than him, because I remember when he was at the podium, he was asked, hey, was it the speed of the game that surprised you? And he actually said no, it was more about his body. So I maybe he thinks, in his mind, it's his body that kind of kept him from looking like he was catching up to the speed of the game. But that has been his whole thing this entire offseason is got to keep my body right, got to stay healthy. And I think for him to be in this game, it obviously is going to take much more than that. It's going to take much more than just being on the field. You have to be good, and you have to be really good, because you have some space that you have to catch up. So Junior Colson, big spotlight on him tonight. Someone I'm excited. I hope we see it, right? I hope we see the progress. I hope we see the player that me and you really loved when we watched him coming out of Michigan and thought he was one of the best linebackers in the draft. But that's a fickle position, and you don't know what you're going to get or how long it's going to take. But this is another huge one for me. Kyle Keandre, the 4th-round edge rusher. Huge ramifications here because we're kind of penciling him in as edge 4 for this team. The 4th highest snaps for an edge rusher last year was Joey Bosa with over 450. That's a big role, right?
Yeah.
But so far, he's been pretty quiet, David. And this is another guy where it's like, he's been pretty quiet. And there's only been so many padded practices. And obviously, that's a position you kind of have to have those for to show what you can do. But he's another guy that could change it in one night. Like, he could change it tonight, and we could have a hugely different feeling about Kyle Keandre if he has a big-time performance.
Yeah, in his last year in college, he was a bit of a streaky player, too. You know, a guy that, you know, if he got kind of pressure early on in the game, seemed like he kind of got a little bit stronger throughout the game. Was after he got something under his belt, got that confidence, and then was really ready to kind of wreck the game. And so we know that that ability is in there, and he is probably going to get a ton of opportunities in this game to rush the passer because, you know, most of the guys that are in front of him are not going to play. So he's probably going to start this game, I would imagine, at least on one side. And so, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to what he looks like out there. If he's able to set a physical edge and run support, if he's able to get some pressure on the quarterback, right? Like, that's how he's going to make his money, you know, getting after the quarterback. So for Kyle Keandre, this is kind of the glimpse of what they want to be, the future of the edge position for the Chargers.
And even more than that, how concerned you should be about the depth in that room right now. Because Daniel Popper has said he hasn't really shown much as a pass rusher, but he has shown some nice physicality in the running game and the 9-on-7s where it's all runs all the time. That's actually probably more encouraging because that was probably a bigger flaw in his game coming out was how much you'd be able to hold up as an actual edge defender holding that edge at the next level. I think the impressive thing with him was like, man, we saw him do it against Will Campbell. We saw him do it against some really, really good tackles, which is why in part, I was so high on him. But he has to show it, you know, if he wants to really have that kind of role and be able to get that many snaps after working with the 2nd and 3rd team defenses at training camp. It starts now and it starts tonight. And it also starts for Jamari Caldwell, who we're really excited to see, obviously, as a, you know, a boost to this interior defensive line, but someone now that seems to have a lot more competition around him than maybe we thought to begin with.
And I think for Jamari Caldwell, for me, I'm looking at to see in particular if he's going to be able to get some pass rush, if he's going to be able to get after the quarterback a little bit, because the Chargers lost a lot of interior pass rush with Poona Ford walking out the door, with Morgan Fox going to another football team. That's a lot of pressure to have to replace. And so hopefully, you know, with Jamari Caldwell, we kind of know what he's going to be in run support, a guy that's going to be able to take on double teams that has some quick, nimble feet. But I want to see if that, you know, those quick, nimble feet can be utilized as a pass rusher, getting some pressure up the middle on the quarterback.
It's huge. It's totally huge. And the quickest way for him to be able to find himself into a much bigger role is if he can show that. And also, he had 0 sacks last year, right? And I know he took a lot of criticism, but did have 6 at Houston the year before that. But man, how cool would it be if he had 0 sacks in that amount of time and then went out and got one tonight, right?
Yes.
Like that would just be such a good feeling. And although he's not playing against real NFL starters, it's still a huge jump in competition.
And it's still a sack in the NFL. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, with CJ Okoye also, you know, got a preseason sack.
Yeah.
But like, this is still a big jump in competition for them from what these guys are facing. Like, all these dudes were, you know, some of the best players on their college teams playing in these games, even if they're not roster, you know, hopefuls or favorites. Last one we got to touch on here, Nikko Reed, absolutely the biggest Cinderella story so far out of this training camp at a position that felt not maybe that it was predetermined, but it did feel like it was going to be kind of Dean Leonard and Jasir Taylor and Triquez Bridges, the draft pick, that was going to be fighting it out potentially for a bottom of the roster spot on the 53. And Nikko Reed has not only kind of put his name into the conversation, I'd go as far as to say that it feels like he's already pretty much wrapped up a practice squad spot. And what these games will be about is if he can actually kind of catapult himself into a real 53-man roster conversation.
It's one thing to make a play in practice, to be able to force a fumble, to be able to get a pick. It's another thing to do it against a real opponent in an NFL preseason game, right? That's where, you know, you make plays and you put it on tape, then your chances of making a team skyrocket. I mean, because it's one thing to show it in practice, but it's a whole different thing to show it in the game. That's when you're going to be able to raise your stock to make the roster.
Absolutely. I don't know if he's in that conversation. Maybe he is already. I mean, he intercepted Justin Herbert twice in 3 practices. As a cornerback, that is going to put your name on the map to a certain extent. It's going to get you on the radar. But also, per Daniel Popper, had a 4 practice streak, pass breakups at practice too. So, like, Jesse Minter said this about him specifically. You make a play every day. You know, not the exact quote, but he basically said, paraphrasing here, if you make a play every day, that's how you get noticed, especially as an undrafted free agent. And man, he is the epitome of that because it feels like every day he's popping up on the Popper practice report. I mean, don't say that 5 times fast. But this is a guy that I think you should absolutely have your eyes on tonight in this Hall of Fame game as someone who seems to be an ascending, exciting young player that if he can keep it up and translate what he's done at practice onto the field tonight in these next few games coming up, maybe it makes you feel a little different about the Chargers cornerback room and maybe the depth of it there and maybe the potential of, another kind of future guy that, down the road could be something for you as an undrafted player. But
and an undrafted player is going into the Hall of Fame tonight representing the Chargers. So just going to show you that if you ball out, no matter where you came from, you can do something in this league.
Yeah, look at, Michael Davis, right? A dude who got, multiple contracts in the NFL as an undrafted free agent player. Julio Adai, another guy, same situation. But you're talking about Antonio Gates, a Hall of Fame game tonight. The first player in NFL history to be inducted into the Hall of Fame after never playing a collegiate snap of football. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make any sense, man. Antonio Gates is the GOAT. So excited to,
one of my favorite players of all time.
Always, man. I mean, there's, a signed jersey of his that sat behind me in many a Locked On Charger episode and is sitting behind me now, even though I don't know exactly how I'm going to hang it up yet. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. The good news is there's a game tonight. There's a real football game tonight. And a real football Chargers game means that we're going to be broadcasting to you live after it later on tonight. Super excited to make sure you guys don't miss it. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast from. And as well as thank you, as always, for just making us your first listen and being here with us as the only daily Chargers podcast out there. And for bearing with me, I've been fighting through it for sure. So just always appreciate you guys and the respect you have for the hard work that we put in and to always be here for your team every day, in sickness or in health, for lack of a better phrase there. But you can also find the show every day on all of our social media, so make sure you go follow us on Twitter at LockedOnLAC and me and Dan Talk Sports, David at DroTalkSD, as well as us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page as well. We also could have some new content, some new video content starting pretty soon on those channels. That could be even a surprise to David. But make sure you guys are back here for the live show recapping the Hall of Fame game against the Lions tonight. Until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.